Sapoops, siaolangs. I repeat, siaolangs. I wonder how many of you have encountered a siaolang very recently or in the course of your everyday life. I don't know if that has happened to you, but I don't know. Maybe you're lucky, maybe you're unlucky. I'm not sure. Today, we have a very interesting topic, and it is should we protect the siaolangs? It's actually a question that I have inside my head. I don't actually know the answer to. And why am I asking this question right here? Well, as human beings, we see a ton of bad stuff that happens in the world every single day, right? So then a lot of times, we tend to think to ourselves, well, maybe it's because people are evil. Dude, it's like people are like bad. Like people have like a lack of education. People like just can't do things because their moral compasses or otherwise have just been like completely shot, fried, set on fire, and thrown into the dustbin where it jumps into the dumpster fire of all the other larger fires out there in the world as well. I can see, by the way, that like a whole lot of you out there are saying that yes, you should protect mentally ill people from all or some of the consequences of their actions. For some context, Sapoops, the whole reason why I'm thinking about this question in the very first place is because, well, you probably know about a certain Siaolang who has been on this channel like for the past couple of days, and that is the ever wonderful, inimitable Muhammad Marcus Lim. Kinds of things that a guy basically just talks about. They showcase a very, shall we say, twisted view of the world. If you don't remember any of those comments, then let me go right ahead and remind you what we have right over there. Fake Chinese person since blah, 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 blah. Okay? So I'm not here to rage or anything like that, right? I'm here to just like ask like a question, right? What if all of these people are actually just siaolang? What if they are literally mentally ill? What if every single person that you see out there on the internet who is writing racist comments and who is basically behaving less like a human being and more like an animal in terms of like the way that they actually interact with like other people out there? What if the problem with them is that they actually have some sort of mental illness? Like, is that actually excusable? Three of y'all have actually said, yes, we should protect mentally ill people from all or some of the consequences of their actions. And one person has voted no. So the thing I wonder about, right, is can you actually say the same thing, right? If you really just look at all the stuff that you see out there on social media all of the time. If you go on like say Sina Harian and you look for like some of the more controversial articles, you're gonna see like some of this out there just like demonstrating, right, that people basically just have no social sensitivity. And some people will engage in like racism on a massive scale, right? Is it just purely because like they were educated wrong? I don't think so. I think actually like there is a good portion of these people who are actually mentally ill. And for those of you who might have seen like live streams like a couple of days ago, well, actually like by this point it's like basically a couple of weeks at this point, right? We talked about what a siaolang is, all right? So then a siaolang is basically a crazy person that can be a man or a woman, people who behave in an erratic, unpleasant, and socially negative way. Okay? Now, what I said at that time, right, was that it is possible for a person to have a mental disorder and not be a xiaolang, although the incidence of mental disorders often correlates positively with xiaolang behavior. What does that mean? Well, I'm gonna show you a little bit of like a discussion, right, of what actually happens to people when you have mental disorders. So, like, if you really have a mental disorder, right, like, that means actually that, like, there is a part of you, right, that is not really working in the expected way. But it's a very broad umbrella, right? And the thing is, when you say that like somebody is like mentally ill, or you say like what is not normal kind of thing, right? So then like you have to ask yourself, right? Like what is actually normal? Is it normal, for example, to be like watching your words like day in and day out? Is it normal, for example, to wear a mask in like some situations and to choose to hide your feelings, right? Like if you know that what you're going to say is going to piss people off. Is it normal, for example, to behave in such a way that like you have conversations with everyone? If you keep silent, then is that normal? If you're a person who is living in, for example, like the United States of America, right? Like probably like somebody who is like just quiet and doesn't like talk to people would probably not really be considered normal, that kind of thing. Or at least like not normal, like in such a way that maybe like a person like in Asia, right, might consider that sort of behavior normal. Like, let's say, for example, right, okay, I live in America for about 4 years, right? I was on a scholarship. I studied in America and like I hung out with Americans on a day-to-day basis. Now, in America, it's very normal for you to go out there and then like just have a conversation with someone. Hey, how you doing? ¿Cómo estás? Hablo un poco de español. Entonces, hablamos un poco de español. That kind of thing right there. So we actually had like conversations. I learn some Spanish as a result of like speaking to like random like Mexican people here and there. It's like all very like normal type of thing. But like if you do that in like Malaysia and stuff like that, like you probably are going to get like some weird looks, like people are just going to be all like, whoa, 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 what's going on right there? Unless of course like, you're in a social situation, you're hanging out with like some friends right here. And by the way, Sapoops, if you are just coming in for the very first time here, so welcome to the live stream. We are talking about siaolangs and whether we can protect them. I welcome your perspectives, your comments, and of course, if you want to go right ahead and take part in the discussion, then you can go right ahead and join our Discord. The link, right, is right over in the description. And right now, we're just casually talking about like a range of these things. There's also a conversation at the moment about siaolangs. And by the way, this gentleman right here, who is partly the focus of what is happening right over here, we have a full discussion featuring right now this guy who said, "My mustache is real. Also, please help advocate for the legalization of cannabis when you have time." To which I responded by saying, "Nah, I won't be doing that. Also, I don't care about your mustache because it's true. I'm sorry. I don't care about your mustache, bro." Like, the guy that was in the screenshot that you just saw earlier, like, he was like commenting on my poll featuring like who you would side with in the case of like the fitnah feud of Rafizi Ramli and Caprice, right? So he comes in and then he just pops in and he's like, bro, like, tell me right now, tell me right now that you can help me advocate for the legalization of cannabis. It's like, it's not related, bro. It's unrelated. Do you know that there is a specific topic to the discussion? And if it is unrelated, then maybe then you should not be casually raising it. Bro, like, I care as much about your mustache as I care about the fate of amoeba that are living in North Africa in a pond that I do not know the geographical location, coordinates, and identity of. Literally, that is how much I care about your mustache. Fact. But then he goes on and says, thanks. Also, just to be friends, I don't mind shaving my mustache and giving it to you for the sake of our newfound friendship. Bro, you know, in Siaolang solidarity right now, I am happy to just like keep on clapping like this right here as people like just like infer, like especially the people who just came in randomly seeing me clap like this, that I am the Siaolang because that is just how Siaolang that comment actually is. But the point is, yo, we're having a discussion right now about the Siaolang. It's on Discord. And if you want to join in on that, then go right ahead, right? And pop in to our Discord. The link is going to be in the chat really soon, right there. Boop, boop. So yeah, pop in and yeah, come along and have a nice chat with us. The question is, do people behave, right, in a socially negative way, right? Because they are really bad people? Or is it because they are literally mentally incapacitated? You have like a lot of these kinds of people, dude, like who are just like this, right? And like you just wonder to yourself why they ended up the way that they did, right? So again, you can say that like maybe he's just a bad person. Maybe he just ended up like that way because he has like a personality problem. You know, like some people like they can actually be bad, right? And like it has maybe like nothing to do with like their mental state. Like maybe they're just like bad people. They just like are unable to actually interact with people, right? Like they can't have like conversations without like seeing the bad in other people. Like the moment that somebody like succeeds at something, then they get jealous. Or like it can be that if they see that someone has failed, right, then immediately then their instinct is to literally just pile on them. It's like that one guy, right, that you may have seen in like the memes that says in his high school picture, right? It is not enough that I should succeed, others should fail. Yo, it is not enough that I should succeed, but others should fail. So, if you actually look at something like that, right? So then, does that come from mental illness? I don't know. Like, I feel like a lot of y'all would say that, like, no, that doesn't come from mental illness. That comes from his personality just being warped. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like, you can never really be certain about things in this world, right? Like, maybe he had like some sort of like trauma when he was like a kid kind of thing. Maybe his parents like abused him as a child. And then as he grew up, right, like instead of receiving video games or birthday gifts, his mom and dad basically gave him like pocket calculators and then 作业 or like homework or like for example like SPM study books day in and day out, and he was like literally reading these every single year while the hatred inside him, right, like just started escalating. You know what I think about like some of these like racist people out there as well, right? Like I can imagine that exact same scenario like sort of like transpiring, right? And you can imagine that maybe like it can be that like maybe in their schools, right? Like they have like maybe like one like crazy racist teacher who goes out and then like starts telling them like, hey, like, do you know that X is like pendatangs? And do you know that these people are out there to destroy us? And do you know that if you don't it or otherwise, right? Then basically like they are going to run you over. And like this is actually the kind of thing, right, that you can see in like some schools out there, right? Like there was actually a teacher, right, who literally went out and then asked her kids to go back to China. I don't know if any of y'all saw this, but like I think it was a pretty interesting case, which maybe not everyone actually had the chance to look at right there. So I'm gonna show it right there. By the way, guys, like if I'm not looking at comments like really actively right now, like I'm sorry, but like I'm just like caught up in this like very fascinating topic right now. It's interesting to me and it's intrinsically interesting, right? Because like for me, you know, like literally just like figuring out the answer to a lot of things, right? Like it actually comes from like talking out loud about them, understanding that my words may have implications that maybe somebody listening on the other side. And if you feel that this is something important to support or that you want to go out there and make sure that conversations like these will end up reaching more people, make sure to subscribe or to feel free to donate to the cause in order that we can get this out to more people. All right. But that being said, so there was this teacher actually, right? She was going out there and like telling people, right, hey, you should go back to China if you can't speak Malay. But a school, generally speaking, is meant to be a place, right, where people actually learn things. You know what I mean? So it's meant to be a place where people actually learn things. Like the Malay teacher was actually there, right, to make sure that her kids can actually end up learning Malay. But instead, then what she does is that she goes out and then she starts screaming about how like people should go back to China. And then like she basically claims to be like super frustrated because like all these people are not speaking Malay at all, that kind of thing, right? And like the way I think about it is like, dude, it's because you're a bad teacher. It's because you suck at teaching. That's why these people are horrible. It's because like you spout hatred to people on a day-to-day basis. So like if the only language that people can communicate to you in is Malay, right? Then like why the hell would anybody want to learn Malay? Like there's no point in communicating with you except to pass the exams. Like people will like go up to you, right? And then like they will like speak to you in Malay, only just like one or two lines or phrases kind of thing, right? But then like after they graduate kind of thing, then like in their estimation, because of your actions, I'm not saying that like your language is bad, yeah, but because of your actions, right? Then from their perspective, then basically like the entire language can just die lah. Like for what I go and learn Malay is their perspective. That's what I'm saying right there. And if you think about like what happened to those kids in that particular school, right, where like the kids were told like, "Hey, go back to China," kind of thing. So can you imagine, on the other hand, right, if that teacher is like literally going up to like the other kids, right, and telling them, "Hey, you know, like all these people need to go back to China." You have an entire generation of people who are like just hateful and like then just don't want to serve you. If like basically they are going out there and just thinking to themselves, yo, like we have an entitlement. People need to communicate with us purely in Malay kind of thing. Kami tuan tanah kind of thing, even though they don't own any land. Their parents don't own any land. Neither do their grandparents. But somehow or another, like they have just been indoctrinated into this hatred. So when you think about like say racism as like a specific example right there, so it can come from like mental illness, right? But it can also become like what it is because people are just like bad people or because of education. But again, I want to go back to like that topic of like mental illness, right? Because like whether you know it or you don't, or like you think it's not present or not, right? It is there. There are people out there in our world, our community, our society, right, who are actually like mentally ill. That is definitely, unquestionably, a fact. And like Sean Joseph, who by the way is in the comments right now, saying like, "Why are you defaming me?" That kind of thing right there. Um, so I'm just pointing out, bro, that like you have like a certain behavior. You're like kind of suggesting that, well, you want to go out there and you want to give like your mustache to me. You said that we were friends. Do we seem like we are friends? Was there an indication that like we were friends? Did something about our interaction suggest that we had become friends? When you just came in and then just randomly decided to suggest that maybe I should start parroting your cause, which you selfishly chose to post about on a video completely unrelated to what I was even talking about in the first place. You then later inferred somehow that you had made a friend and you offered your mustache to me. That doesn't seem like the behavior of someone who is very, shall we say, like friendly to me. I don't think you were making a joke, bro. I was not entertained by that joke. But anyway, so if you want to participate productively, you have the option to do so. But I'm still going to be highlighting the little example right there. Now, this is a very good example to think about. People, right, have different interaction styles, right? And like it's very easy to misunderstand things over the internet. So sometimes you think that you're being friendly, right? But then the other person, right, will then be like, "Oh, yo, no, you're a siaolang," which is exactly how I interpreted Sean Joseph's behavior. Generally speaking, right, you think about me, right, as a person right there, okay? Admittedly, I'm not perfect, right? But, and generally, what will happen is if I see somebody behaving in a way that I consider siaolang behavior, then I will treat it like siaolang behavior. Like, that's just what it is right over there. I don't think it's entertaining for you to go out there and then start talking about things that are unrelated. And if you are going to talk about things that are unrelated, then, well, maybe this is like a siaolang aspect, but you may notice that I don't really have like a lot of sympathy for people that I think are siaolangs. That's just the way that I am. I don't really have that sort of like sympathy out there for people like that. But it is an interesting academic question, right? Like for me, because if you ask the question of, yeah, should society protect mentally ill people from all or some of the consequences of their actions? So far, you have like yes, 41%, no, 36%, and maybe 23%. Well, did I defame you? Or did I just, for example, well, show the comment that you made while suggesting that at that time you wanted to offer, for example, the mustache on your face to me? So, like, if you think about it, that's a very interesting question right there. And no, I do not want to be your friend. So you can think that it was a joke or anything like that. But the thing that you need to understand, right, is that in society, I think that as human beings, we have to understand people's boundaries. In some societies, people have like basically like no boundaries. Like basically everything goes right over there. But as human beings, we have the right to determine what is suitable for us and what is not suitable for us. So in this case right here, you just happen to touch upon my personal boundary. And that is just how it is right there. But going on into what I was saying earlier, right? So when people behave in like a really weird way, right? So like it can be because they're mentally ill. It can be because they were, shall we say, ethically challenged because they were thought wrong, right, by the people around them. Or they may not be mentally ill and they may claim that they're making jokes, but actually, well, there is some sort of like alternate explanation out there through the unfortunate series of misunderstandings that may happen out there in the world. If somebody ends up actually like behaving in like a really bad way, right? I think that like that can start like from young, right? Like if you were trained in like some like really racist environment where like your parents and for example like the people around you, right, were like telling you, oh, these people are horrible, these people are bad, oh, like we are the originals, like we can't let all these people come in, right? Then like that can actually persist, like people might be thinking to themselves, yo, so like even though they have blue ICs, right, they're all like pendatangs kind of thing. Whether it's true or it's not true at all, right? And the thing is that I'm sure that some of this is intelligent, but I will say actually that like from my observation, right, if people make more money, then they are going to be less likely, right, to be like just casually believing this kind of thing. And why is this actually the case? So like you can actually like go out there and like try to study this. It's a topic that I think is kind of like worthwhile for you to go out there and like understand a little bit right here. Let's give a prompt, right, that helps you to kind of like understand like what's actually going on right over there. Talk to me about the poverty cycle, about how intergenerational poverty and resources can actually increase the likelihood that a particular person born in a particular community may experience mental illness or the likelihood of mental illness transpiring. And also talk to me about the likelihood that people from broken families or otherwise are going to, in essence, end up taking part in socially negative or deleterious behaviors, such as racism, acting out unnecessarily, or otherwise demonstrating irrational behaviors that can harm other people in a society. And by the way, right, when we think really about like this whole idea of like harming other people in a society, I think that that's kind of like very important, right? Because you see, the thing is, right, if a person is crazy and then they're crazy on their own, right? Like for example, like I don't know, like you lock yourself up in a room, you just don't talk to anybody at all. Like you just like I don't know, like watch anime day in and day out, become a hikikomori. Like you never reach a single person out there in the world, right? Like in that situation, right? I think that like, hey, like you have done what economists would then call internalizing the externality. Let me translate that into English. Usually, like if you behave in like a siaolang way, right? Like you go out there and then like you write nonsense comments and you, for example, go out there and insult people and then you try to spread slander or lies or otherwise, right? In that situation, you end up harming people. So then that's what in economics we call an externality, right? But just because you are mentally ill, right? Or like you have a tendency to take part in xiaolang behaviors, right? It doesn't mean that you need to go out there and act out. You don't need to go out there and like write that racist comment. If you're tempted to write that racist comment, you can just like zip, stop. Don't do the thing that you thought that you were going to do. Because words have consequences, actions have consequences. And if you encounter the right person out there to bully, right, then they're not going to make an MCMC report right there. They're not going to share like what you said and chose to publicly make available right there. But if you are living in a society, right, where more people are like what I desire, right, where if people see your nonsense, they will go ahead and report you, and then there will be a credible guarantee that you are going to be enforced against so that you cannot talk your nonsense, right? Well, I think that, having such a scenario is actually like better, so to speak. Now, the thing is, right, when you sort of think about everything that is like happening out there in the world, the likelihood that the person is going to become a siaolang or otherwise, right, is really just like that much higher if like your family was already like siaolang. By the way, like look at this right here. These are the wordings, by the way, Sean Joseph. I said found another siaolang. Now, is it slander though? I mean, like I did mention that. Well, if you are a siaolang, I mean, like you can be a siaolang because of many different reasons, right? Like it's not just because of mental illness. Am I making the declaration that you are, in fact, a person who suffers from a mental illness? Well, you can think about it along the way. But either way, right? So if a person actually were, right, to go out there and be in a poor family from the very outset or from the start, right? Like it's much, much more likely that you are essentially going to end up behaving in like a socially negative way. You're going to end up saying nonsense that like people can respond to, that people will respond to if like they know how to stand up for their rights. If you have independent people out there who are just like casually like, you know what, like you can't be saying this sort of nonsense out there. You cannot say the racist comment. I will go out there and report you. I will send this to your employer. I will destroy your life. Like that's just how it is, right? And it sounds rough and otherwise, right? And like it's probably uncomfortable for a whole bunch of you, but in my opinion, right? Like if you actually want to create a disciplined society, one where, right, like you actually have like a good environment and stuff like that, you do need some degree of constraints. You need to have a situation, right, where people who are like xiaolangs do not go out there and then just like do random things and like just write like stupid comments like day in and day out, right? But at the same time, like it's complex. It's so complex. It's so complex. Like you look at like the comments written by like the Muhammad Marcus Lims and the Jaron Tings of our era, and then you immediately start to think also, right, about how like maybe this person is actually just mentally impaired. Maybe that's why he's going out there and sharing David Wood's like videos, even though, right, that's like one of the very worst possible things that you could do if you're actually trying to promote your religion, because the guy is like an extreme apologist right there. Now, I haven't watched David Wood's videos in any detail, and that is absolutely true. I did think that these were educational videos, but the thing is that people have been calling him like a penunggang agama, and like not just one person like on my channel, but like, well, actually maybe it's just like Zen Wave Function. But like you could say that he's like penunggang agama, except like for Christianity, right? And then like if you are basically like somebody who's like a apologist for like another faith altogether, right? Like there's no reason whatsoever for you to go out there and share David Wood. Like literally no reason at all. But yeah, if you are thinking about like all of this stuff right here, it's complex, right? Because like really, if a person like just had a very unfortunate life, they don't know how to behave. Nobody ever taught them this kind of thing right there. Or like maybe it can be that 我教你，可是你不学， in English, it means I teach you, but then you just do not learn, right? Which is possible also, right? Like you can have like a perfect life in like the very best possible family, but then because you either didn't pay attention or because like you just cannot catch the ball, you tak boleh nak take in apa yang telah ditengahkan kepada engkau, like that sort of thing, right? It's possible, right? People can suck at different things. Like some people suck at sports, some people suck at academics, and some people might just like suck at like following instructions, whether in work or like in terms of like say morality or otherwise, right? But yeah. Now the question of should we protect the siaolangs right there is something that I hope, right, that you're going to really like think about a little bit along the way. We have like 28 votes, and thank you all for watching the live stream. I think that there's like a problem with like the view count. It doesn't really like show exactly how many people are watching at this point in time. But anyway, like if you pop by and you happen to watch this, then well, yeah, thank you for contributing your perspectives right over there. And it's not a question that I really have an answer to. It's a question that I want to have the answer to, but that I just don't, right? I don't have it in my power. But if you think right there that people who are mentally ill, right, should be protected from the consequences of their actions, what I would suggest is that maybe what you should do, right, is actually like if you know a local siaolang or otherwise, right, then like try to actually like get them help, that kind of thing. But at the same time, like I think as human beings, right, like we all do have to be like responsible for the consequences of our actions, right? It doesn't matter like if you're a racist, it doesn't matter like if you are like mentally ill or otherwise, right? Like if a Siao Lang goes out there and then like basically just becomes violent and like just starts attacking people or otherwise, right? Like they are going to get into prison, like regardless of like what you think, what you say, or otherwise. It doesn't matter, right? And like I think that as a society, right, we would want that as well, right? We would want it to be that like it doesn't matter like what a person says, right? Like they're insane or whatever, and then they go out there. That's why they go out there, and then like they just like say nonsense. They like go out there and like attack people potentially if they are violent, which is not always the case, right? I think that you want people to go to prison as well, because like I mean, a person can lie about like how they're insane, right? And then like say that, hey, I'm insane, therefore like like don't give me the punishment that I deserve. No, I don't. I think that people should be accountable on some level for what they do, regardless of like what they say about their mental status or their ability to do things right over there, right? And you can think about like the Joker and stuff like that out there. I think that's a very interesting example as well. I mean, like, you think about people like the Joker, right? So then, like, should the Joker be held accountable for his actions right there? Could somebody that you know end up becoming like the Joker or anything else out there? Clearly, he's mentally insane. But then the question is, right? So then, like, should he be just completely allowed to do everything that he wants to do out there? Some of you who like the very idea of anarchy might very well say that yes, he should be able to do whatever it is out there. But I would say that like I'm not the kind of person who thinks that like society is like eternally doomed. We're already living in the dystopia, or every single part of our society that could have aimed towards goodness has already gone down the destruction of our morals in a post-capitalist society predicated upon surveillance and sharing values that destroy the very foundations of family values and all the things that should be characteristic of what we call a civilized society in the modern age. I don't think that we are really at that point just yet. I think that if you were to split up the timeline, right, and then basically you have a timeline where people are aware, right, that there are these kinds of like xiaolang behaviors out there. There are people who can behave in a bad way right there. And in that timeline, we actually take action to deal with the fact that there are these people who are doing these bad things, and we actually mitigate the harm associated with these people by like identifying proactively, like monitoring and like I don't know if we want to go like down the pathway of like, I don't know, like psychopaths or something like that, where like we are like literally preemptively identifying criminals and then like removing them from society just based on like your psychopathy score, that kind of thing. I don't think that we want to go like in that direction. And like if you have like a guy like this guy over here, by the way, like you guys should actually watch this anime, it's really good. I think that like in that scenario, right? Like you would end up well with a different set of problems altogether, right? But in this timeline that we'll call timeline A, if we can actually deal with these kinds of problems, right, beforehand, right, I think that you end up in a better scenario than say in timeline B, where like you just don't do anything at all and you say like, hey, like people are gonna go crazy anyway, so then like just go ahead and let them, like ignore them kind of thing, which is like the advice that a lot of like parents in Malaysia just give to their kids. Even as they say that, like, hey, like all these people are like behaving in a bad way, like they're racist or whatever, it's okay. You make a lot of money, like, and do all that stuff right there. It doesn't matter. Like, you're gonna live like a better life than them right there. You're gonna be so happy right there. And to that, I say, like, no, no, come on, right? Like, in this world, we have limited space, we have limited time. Like, if you don't deal with this problem, right? Or if there isn't a technological solution, which I'm open to at this point as well, sounds bad, but like, like imagine managing people like that. Wow, like since Gemini is like listening to all of this right here, who knows? Like maybe at some point then it's gonna actually end up like creating some sort of like self-improving AI system that's gonna end up following my advice, and then it will result in the destruction of the entire human race. Who knows? But yeah, bros, I think that the Xiaolang thing is something that we all actually need to like really like think about out there. It's an actual issue that we should be like, well, actually dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, so right now, 38% no, 25% maybe. And I think that that's a good note to end the live stream on because I have to go for dinner right at the moment. So thank you all for popping by for the live stream. And thank you for taking part in this very provocative conversation. And to those of you who haven't already had your fill of celebrating Chinese New Year, 恭喜发财，新年快乐，年年有余，给我红包. Just kidding, but, also a possibility. Anyway, so ciao. It's been real.